Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. There is a lot going on today as we get this show up. It's National Signing Day, and we've already had a nice pickup with four-star wideout Carmelo English from Alabama. So I won't try to keep up with that. We'll have plenty of time in the coming weeks to do just that. With all of the bowl games going on now, and the playoffs a week away, and throw in Christmas, our schedules are jam-packed. So I thought I'd get TCU's radio play-by-play guy on now to give us his inside thoughts on our New Year's Eve opponent. It seems like most college football experts are predicting a Michigan victory, and we all hope that's the case, but I am not selling TCU short. Max Duggan is a player. He's the kind of quarterback anyone would want to play with. He can make every throw, he can beat you with his legs, and he sells out to win. I like him. They have an offense that is explosive both through the air and on the ground. Their defense has given up points this year. It seems everyone does in the Big 12, but they have found ways to come up big when they needed stops. Now, I'm not sure they are as explosive as Ohio State on offense, and I don't think their D is as good as the Buckeyes, but they still are as good as any team we've played this year. They deserve to be in the playoffs, and taking them down will be a challenge. It should be when you get this far. My guest today says when you boil it down, this is a game between two teams that have the same philosophies on both sides of the ball. The difference is TCU is built on speed, and we are built on brute force. As he said, the questions are, can we deal with TCU's speed, and can they hold up against our physical pounding? Today's interview is only about 10 minutes, so it's short. It's a crazy busy 2 weeks for media covering both teams, so I'm just glad we had a few minutes with our guest today. Up next is the radio play-by-play voice of TCU football, Brian Estridge. So stay with us. Here with us on our visitors edition of the show this week is the radio play-by-play voice of TCU football, Brian Estridge. Great to have you with us, Brian.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you here very soon.
Well, Brian, when we kicked off this season in September, none of the so-called college football experts, looking back at it now, were mentioning TCU as a team that, could be in the playoffs or competing at the top of the Big 12. It's been a heck of a ride, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. I tell you what, you're right, Mike. I mean, not a lot of folks had TCU in the playoff. In fact, I don't know of anyone. This was a team that was picked 7th in the Big 12 in the preseason polls by the media, which tells you exactly what we know, right? But they caught lightning in the bottle with a terrific senior class, with a quarterback that has been dynamic, and really with a first-year head coach who changed the culture and the mindset and really built the confidence of this program. And that's probably been the biggest difference maker, is what Sonny Dykes and his staff have been able to instill in this program. And I use the analogy all along that it's kind of like a pitcher. If a pitcher walks out on a mound that day thinking his stuff is the best, he's really hard to hit. And that's what TCU is. They think their stuff is the best. They think their offensive and defensive schemes are the best. Their players are the best. That their training was the best. And that really carried them and propelled them throughout the year.
You know what makes this story so great too, Brian, is that in this day and age, we're all hung up on recruiting classes and who's got the 4 stars, who's bringing in the 5-star guys. And here TCU is in the playoffs, and the Horned Frogs have done it without stacking up these blockbuster recruiting classes. And what does that tell you?
Well, I think also, what do we know about recruiting classes? I mean, this class was the last class, really, or the first class that Sonny Dykes signed, which will be freshman this year. That was the 13th best class in the country, so it wasn't chop-a-lip. And it may not have been number 1 or 2 like Michigan, but this is a group that has been steady as far as recruiting is concerned. Their talent over the years has been pretty solid. I mean, you look at the success over the last 2.5 years. You can stack TCU's program and win percentage up, with some of the best in the country. And, this is a team that's played in a Rose Bowl and played in a Fiesta Bowl and, played in a couple of Alamo Bowls, and they know what it's supposed to look like. And so, yeah, I think that maybe we discounted that a little bit, but I think also, you had some guys that overachieved. And I think give credit to a coaching staff that saw talent and saw ability that maybe others didn't see.
Well, if there's a better story this year in college football than TCU, it has to be the young man under center for you, Max Duggan. Talk about his incredible journey to get to this point, Brian.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. I tell everybody all the time that he's a guy you'd let babysit. He's a wonderful individual. He studies hard, both in the classroom and in the film room. He's all in when it comes to TCU. He lost his starting job at the end of camp this year, end of fall camp, and it was obvious. I mean, we were there for every one of those camps practices, and at the end of it, the last 2 weeks, Chandler Morris had beat him out for the job, but he got another opportunity when Chandler got hurt in that Colorado game, and he never looked back. He never gave the job up again, and he had a terrific year, a very efficient year. He made dynamic big plays. This is a team Mike that just loves playing for him. He's a fighter. And I think these guys who block for him, who run for him, who catch for him, they realize that they've always got a chance with Max out there. And so Max Duggan has been a special player this year. And, finished number 2 in the Heisman, deservingly so. We like to think if that vote would have taken place after the Big 12 championship game, that vote might have been different just based on the way the two players handled themselves at the end of the year.
And while Max is that straw that stirs the drink for this very powerful offense, he has plenty of help. And starting with the running game, the guy he hands off to, Kendra Miller, has had a huge season, put up big numbers, hasn't he?
Yeah, a guy who's scored a touchdown in every game dating back to, I think, the last 2 games of last year. And Kentray's a guy that can be a dynamic runner. He can be physical enough. People think that, this is an air raid offense with Garrett Riley, Lincoln's younger brother is the offensive coordinator. And it is. It can be an air raid. They'll throw a lot of verticals, but they want to run the football first. And it's a balanced offense with both Kentray Miller and Amari DiMarcado getting carries, and an offensive line that can be very physical. They love to play with tempo. They'll speed the game up, and when they do that, these offensive linemen start running downhill. But it's not just the running game either. I mean, you got a first-round draft pick at wide receiver in Quentin Johnston. You've got a dynamic playmaker in the slot in Darius Davis, who's maybe the best returner in the country. You got Tate Barber, who's a possession receiver to go get it. You got a 6'7" tight end, and Jared Wiley, a transfer from Texas, that has been vital this year. So you're right; it's more than one man on the offensive side of the ball.
And when you look at that running game too, Max Duggan, we see what he can do with his arm, that big arm, the big plays, with his feet, over 600 yards rushing, and he looks like he's has some wheels on him.
Yeah, over 100 yards in that championship game against Kansas State. And you got to remember, toward the back end of the year, the last 4 games, they ran Max less and less just to protect him, to preserve him, knowing full well that you're going to be in it for the long haul here with postseason. So he didn't run it as much, wasn't out of the pocket as much, was asked not to. And so I think you're going to see full-on Max Duggan in this Fiesta Bowl. I think you'll see him both effective with his feet and with his arm.
Well, most of the focus when you're scouting TCU is on how to stop this offense. But over on the other side of the ball, this is a pretty darn good defense too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a group that's had some success. They adjusted to the 3-3-5 that Joe Gillespie, the new defensive coordinator, brought in, and took a couple of games to get that under their belt. But then, you look at offenses that are, say, maybe similar to Michigan's, those that like to run the football, and you'd have to bring up the University of Texas. Texas has been a powerful running game over the years. They had 2 first-round draft picks. One of them just declared yesterday, Bijan Robinson, who won't play in the bowl game. And the Frogs held them to minus 23 yards rushing in Austin. That tells you a little bit about their ability to stop the run. And, I think they held them to 23 yards minus 5 in the second half. I think that's how it was. I don't have it right in front of me. But, it's a group that's been effective against the run this year. It is a group that has 2 terrific corners in Travius Hodges-Tomlinson and Josh Newton, 2 guys that can be lockdown guys that many think will be early round draft picks. You've got a dynamic group of linebackers, and you got 3 down linemen that have been able to hold their own. So I think it's a defense that has probably not gotten enough attention, but has definitely gotten better as the season has gone on.
Well, we can't talk about this great TCU season without discussing AP Coach of the Year, Sonny Dykes, and he has done a great job in his first season, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's terrific. He's made a mistake somewhere along the line, Mike. I just haven't seen it yet. He's a guy that he's punched all the right buttons so far. He's a truly transparent guy. He's a terrific analytics coach. He's a strategizer. But he's also a confidence builder, like we talked about at the beginning here. That's his biggest thing is he wants his guys to know that he loves them and that he thinks that they can go out and beat anybody. And they play that way too. And I think that's really been the big difference maker is how he's handled the psychology of this team and the difference that's made for this group.
Well, final question before we let you get away, Brian. Michigan is a 7-point favorite heading into the game, which really means nothing, as we know. I've been able to see a couple of the TCU games this year, but it looks like a fascinating matchup, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'll tell you why, because I know Jim Harbaugh's made it a point to add speed to his roster, but that's what TCU is built on. Michigan will be bigger than TCU. There's no question about it with that big old offensive line that they'll roll out. But I'm not sure Michigan's played a team as fast as TCU is. And I think we find out what the equalizing factor is in this ball game. Is it speed or is it size? What ends up being the difference maker? Because I think you're going to have 2 teams that try to do things similar in some regards, but those 2 leverage points I think are different, speed and size, and we'll see which one plays out.
With us today has been the radio play-by-play voice of TCU football, Brian Estridge. Brian, thanks for your time, and enjoy the game, and a very Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for having me on.
On Quick Hits today, as I said at the top of the show, we're getting this show published on National Signing Day, so there is a lot going on. I won't even try to keep up with it. We'll have plenty of time to talk about this class and our next one in January. After the playoffs, and I hope a national championship game, we'll have more coverage of some of our other winter sports. I have not forgotten about hoops and hockey, but until this great playoff run and football season is over, we are sticking with football news. Next week we'll be back. I'm not sure if I'll have 1 or 2 shows, but we will be back to get ready for our huge Fiesta Bowl game / playoff appearance on New Year's Eve. Before I close today, I would like to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas. I know how busy we all are at this time of year, and I hope you get to spend some time this weekend with those you love and remember those we have lost during this past year. So thank you for tuning into my little labor of love each week. Without you, this show wouldn't be nearly as much fun as it is. Once again, don't forget to come back next week for our final playoff game previews, and I can't wait. That does it for now. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Merry Christmas from all of us here at the Michigan Man. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on the Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!